the paper. Rosemary and I had gone to see Reverend Roy and Mama Hedrick. And she told us that Wilma was on the committee. And she said, Phyllis, you ought to write something about your dad. And I said, no, I don't think so. And Reverend Roy said, yeah, she should do that. And Mama Hedrick kept blowing about it, and Rosemary chimed in, well, I think it'd be good if one of you or your brothers would do it. And I thought, well, my brothers ain't going to do it. So I said, well, I'll give it some thought. And they said, well, Wanda and Wilma really want you to do it. So I thought about it, and I kept thinking, what on earth would I say? So I started writing down little tidbit things. And then I gave it a copy to Larry and a copy to Garland. And I said, you can add to, subtract, whatever you want to do, change it any way you want to. And Larry said, well, if my voice holds out, maybe I'll read it. And he said, do you think that'll be okay? And I said, yeah, that'll be fine. I'm sure Ron won't care. So that his voice goes out a day or two before this, and he's not sure, and back and forth. And so that's why, according to Ron, we've been playing. So go ahead, brother.
And my voice is not natural for me. I mean, it's something. Arthur, I'm like you. Give him a piece of honey candy, Joanne.
You want a shot of it?
That ain't bad yet. Yes. I've had this since the second week of July. We were at the beach. And no sore throat or no nothing, but it happens about every other year. So this could go on for 9 or 10 months. And I have had experience where I whispered for 9 months. Literally, whispered all through. It was all for Christmas time. Or getting a phone call, you know. Garland's the oldest, born during the Depression era. I was second, born just before World War II came to an end. And then Phyllis was 2 years after me. And thank you, Wilma, Preacher Hedrick was our minister up in Mount Clinton after Tommy Kaufman. And Tommy, you're talking about the youth, like this place. He was a youth pastor. I mean, fresh out of college, he was red hot. He was really a youth. We had great things going on there that involved the adults also to get them involved to support us. He'd show movies from the Harlem Globetrotters, Ma and Paul Kettle. They wouldn't go today at all. But that was good, clean comedy. And he was a great minister. Great. So I've introduced us. And, well, Phyllis asked me a couple of weeks ago, how was it you suppose that Daddy became asked to be on the committee here? And I don't know exactly, but then, you know, there's a lot of supper time conversations about this, you know. Then a lot of time he wasn't even home for supper. But Mom said he was at a meeting for the camp, but there was one issue before the camp that very possibly, and I don't even know how that happened, but back up, say, 7 years to maybe 57, 58, Shenandoah College, somehow he got on the committee to be searching for land for that new establishment. Somehow. So, anyway. Okay, here goes. I hope. When the Reverend James Swain became pastor at Mount Clinton Evangelical United Brethren Church, Reverend Swain, this is back in the 30s now, Depression time, Reverend Swain gave Daddy a pledge card to give God 1/10 of whatever he was making, a nickel, a dime, a quarter a week. This was always included in his message, no matter what group that Daddy was talking to. True. Very true. And he was not just using words, he was definitely emphatic about it. And I think through that, his work involvement, the evolution of it coming up, would have to do with this, I do believe. because it allowed him to have time. Well, he did work at a place where, a poultry place. He was a foreman. They didn't want you to have a day off. He told me to even go to a funeral. They wanted you there to work all the time. And that didn't suit Daddy. And then his partner that also worked, something I haven't told you. Daddy only had a 7th grade education. He emphasized that all the time. But however his intelligence must have been God-given, way ahead of me when I was in the 7th grade. Millions. So anyway, I remember Daddy would get into it. Well, let's see, Reverend Gary, if he's still here, said Daddy used to use a $10 term, $10 a week, and I'm supposed to give a tenth out of that every Sunday to God. So the figure I remember was 12 and a half. Somewhere he must have got an increase. And he worked over at during the Depression, Shenandoah National Park with the 3C boys. So he was a member of them, but he wasn't. He worked for a contractor, Walt Hilliard, who had dump trucks. And Daddy would leave. He was married then, or at Mount Clinton. He was married and would leave home on a Sunday evening, drive over there, and he had a barracks he stayed in, get his dump truck and haul gravel to the roadways, come home on a Friday evening, and then have the weekend off. And just, for that, of making those few dollars that he had to give his tenth out of, but somewhere the Lord did speak to that man. I don't know what he was like way before then, but he certainly changed him for the attitude of being able to come here and get involved. And he was involved with the whole church. So this is when we kids believe Daddy gave his life totally to God, who became number one, and then his family number two in this life. Daddy loved his church and especially the youth. We had a great youth group, and Daddy did everything that he could to help them. Daddy and Mom always made sure that Larry and Phyllis, when of age, went to church camp every summer. This time, Garland told me, I just asked him today, I remember vaguely when he went to Camp Pins where we went. He went at least once. I went twice. Reverend Midmeyer George was our counselor once for me, I think, and Wilton Thomas. I remember him very well. He was. So anyway, Daddy did everything for the youth of his church, family, and for the districts. Purchasing Camp EUB Overlook was a very proud and a humbling happening for Daddy. At one point, the board came up with mountain movers. Daddy went personally to his church members, family, and neighbors, and even there were car dealerships that he went to, anyone that he could think of, about asking them to join and give money for the camp. Daddy loved company with his buddies, Stroopy, Paul, Harold, and others. They did hiking and worked clearing trees from the land and helped with the buildings. Phyllis remembers Daddy expressing concern to Ron, not long before he passed away, that the camp needed another building for the youth because the camp was turning away children for the lack of space. This was when the Ark was started and became a reality. Daddy and Mom spent many, many hours at the number one spot, other than their church, at the Camp Overlook. Their monetary gift for the love of God was expressed humbly. Thank you.